Well, Peter, I'm finding this very interesting because it's another side of you that we don't know about too much. And I'm going to ask you a question about, commentators, broadcasters. Do you do you have any one ones that stick out in your mind, like that you could learn from? Because up here we have a TSN panel for the NHL games, and I evaluate the evaluators more than I do the game. Is that they provide incredible insights, but some much deeper than others, and some much more entertaining than others. So, do you have anybody in down there in any sport that you've looked at that you learned from?
Well, I enjoy hockey wise. I don't think he does it anymore, but Bill Clement, who used to play for the Flyers, did he play for
Okay.
Calgary at one point? Bill Clement.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he was an analyst, so I always enjoyed listening to his take on things. Um, when I was a kid, I used to listen to the Rangers on the radio, so their broadcasters were people. I mean, this was and again, Hartford Whalers had a guy, Chuck Caton, who was very good. So, I'm still of that era where people actually listened to games on radios, right? Like we used to have the transistor, the battery powered one or whatever, and be out somewhere and we would actually listen to
Yeah.
sporting events as opposed to having to see them.
The radio, you're doing radio commentating, right?
I'm doing it's actually on YouTube, so it's video.
Okay.
So the games are all broadcast. All the athletic teams for the university are broadcast either on YouTube or on something called Flow FLO Flow Sports.
Yeah, yeah, we have that too here.
Yeah, and that's great because you could virtually any day pick up a game and
Yeah,
listen to it and I do. It's funny, like you're saying, you listen to it and you hear what other people are saying and you find yourself not necessarily correcting, but
yeah,
sometimes you find yourself agreeing or disagreeing with what they think they saw. And people probably do the same thing when they're listening to me. I mean, I try to be really, one thing that is irking is when you listen to an analyst or a broadcaster that is just so home oriented, right? The home team can do nothing wrong if there's
yeah.
a bad right, and I don't enjoy that. So I always try to give both sides. And fortunately, I've been getting some decent feedback from, you know, fans and parents that we do a good job of that, playing both sides of it, like not just being a homer, so to speak.
Well,
We got a thing about flow hockey. So we played on Sunday, and our coach supervisor's at the game, and then he writes me after. And he says, just one thing that I noticed your assistant coaches were on their cell phone during the game, and it's not a very good look. And we get complaints from parents, blah blah. And what had happened is one of my assistant coaches was watching in Mexico on flow hockey. So she was texting the other coaches. She usually changes the D. She was texting the other coaches, and that's what they were looking on their cell phone for.
So,
So
Tom, that becomes the saying, right? And this is one of my favorite sayings now is be curious before judgmental. So had that individual started the conversation with, "Hey Tom, I noticed one of your assistants was on the phone. Just curious, can you tell me why were they on the phone?" Then you have that conversation and it's much better. It's much better to be curious before you're judgmental.
no, that's for sure. But I mean that's just the reach of something like flow hockey, eh? So
Yeah, yeah. Oh no, I mean I can be watching somebody up in, Quebec. I can be watching Red Deer play from my living room in Connecticut.
yeah,
well,
yeah, that's true. Yeah, the AAA team asked to use my best player, and she would have to miss the game on Saturday. And I said, I sure prefer if you didn't. She's our only second-year defenseman. She runs our power play, and basically, we're not even close to the same team without her. But anyways,
Yeah.
because they're going to Red Deer, that's what made me think of that.
Oh, okay.
Well, up here on terms of broadcasting and TV casting, I I I really watch TV and I watch between period commentators more than anybody. Tom, I don't know if you listen to them closely. You got a live seat to go to the Flames games, but I find the commentary, the panels amongst themselves very entertaining because they disagree and they joke. It's quite amusing, sometimes more entertaining than the game. Um, and we've got an awful lot of former national women's players that are in the major broadcasting stream now in Canada. And one of them, Cheryl Pounder, she is she does the professional women's league, but she was a major part of broadcasting the World Juniors, and her information was incredible. Um, I talked to a friend um, yesterday about her, and he said she's too fast. She has to slow down, and she's just so informative. It's incredible. Have you heard her, Tom?
Oh yeah, she was in the World Juniors between every period.
Who do you like on the sports casting that you watch?
Well, I like in that group that you're talking about, I like Botterill. She's good, and then all those guys are good. Um, Bietska is really good. He really understands the finer points of the game, I think, and it's a good compliment, And then they have that sports writer, insider guy. Can't remember what his name is, but anyway, I like that panel too, like you said.
Peter, you're working for whom? Are you
So
working for the team, the university, or the where is?
I'm an employee. When I do that, I'm an employee of the university.
Okay,
And I mean, right now I just do I've done some of the women's games too. But budget wise, they just have me working with the men's right now. I mean, I'd love to do the women's program, honestly, because their head coach, new this year, is one of my former players. And I'd love to be able to, justify the time to do his games. I did his first game ever that they had, his first home game. I wanted to be there and give it something a little bit extra. So I kind of volunteered for that one, but it'd be nice to be able to do as many of each as I could.
yeah. Can you elaborate on your university team that you're broadcasting for and your background? But what level is it?
So it's a team that I coach. So it's NCAA Division II hockey. So Division II hockey, essentially the quality of the games is the same as Division III. The difference is Division II, you have to go through the clearinghouse. So there's a minimum GPA average, amount of core courses that you take. So there's a little bit more of an academic twist to it to get into a Division II school to play. The other piece is you can play two exhibition games against Division I programs. So that's essentially the difference between Division II and Division III. But all things, like I say, Wally, being equal, other than those couple things I just mentioned, the quality of the game is the same. The team that they played, they lost 2-3 to 2 earlier in the week, was a team that has been on and off over the years nationally ranked. So it's good hockey. It's not Division I hockey. You know, we play Division I games, essentially get beat up pretty good, but the guys get to see what it's like to actually what a Division I game is actually like, and then very often they realize why they're Division III players.
Are players in your league sort of picking teams every year, or are they pretty stable?
Yeah, they're there. I mean, you'll get the occasional kid who leaves. I think like anywhere leaves. You leave for one of two reasons. You leave taking the Division I thing now and the money piece out of it. You leave either because you're not getting playing time you think you should have, you know, too many guys on the roster, or you can't break into it, right? Or you feel like you're better, you're playing all the time, but you're better than that team and the team isn't doing well, so you look for a greener pasture. That's generally it.
Generally, yeah.
You know, occasionally there's the player that maybe too far from home for whatever reason, the school socially doesn't fit them. But when they leave the team for a hockey reason, it's generally one of those two.
Peter, what is the name of the school, and what are the academic features of that school?
So the school is Post University. It's in Waterbury, Connecticut, and the it's pretty diversified. But the two really main majors are criminal justice and then business. So those are they have some other things because they're interesting school. The campus itself in Waterbury is a fairly small campus. It's probably between 800 and 1,000 students, but they also have a very strong online presence. So if you were to look at like what is the like if you look up the school, it says that there's 20 plus thousand people attending Post University. The reality is there is, but only about, like I say, 800 or so are on campus. The rest are remote. And what that does is it does give that student athlete the ability to take in classroom courses, but also take some online courses. Because some of these kids, you know, they got to work their way through college. So it allows them to get a job, work, yet still fulfill their academic responsibilities.
Well, the idea
So
of
you can
getting a job, Tom worked with SAIT, and I've always felt that technical college like SAIT and the ACAC here in Canada, which is a college league, was far more advantageous from a long-term employment point of view because in a much faster time than the 4 or 5 years of university, you can in 2 years uh, become qualified to get employed, and that part of it really impressed me. Um,
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And I think college sometimes, Wally and Tom, is like the baby bird in the nest. The baby bird gets to a certain point, and the mother bird just kicks him out of the nest, and here you go, right? Well, but in the meantime, right, the mother bird's been feeding them, protecting them, doing all those things, and now you're out into the real world. Here you go. That kind of happens to a fair amount of kids too when they finally graduate because they're in that more or less protected environment, right? It's pretty structured. You get up in the morning. If you're an athlete, you've got that piece, but otherwise, you've got you're going to class, you're doing hanging out with your friends. You can choose to do as much or little as you want, depending upon again partially your financial situation. But then at some point here's your diploma. Thanks for coming. We'll be sending you a letter to donate when you're an alumni. And that's kind of where it goes.
Tom, when was the first time you left home to play hockey?
play hockey. Well, I went to seminary right after high school. I was still 17. turned 18 end of October. And first time I left was in third year out of college. I went and I played junior A in Ponoka. And I left that team. They weren't paying us and stuff like this. But anyways, it doesn't matter. I left that team and I came back to Calgary and I played for the Cowboys, who became the Canucks. And then the next fall, I went to Bemidji.
When you played in Pinoca, did you live there or live in Calgary?
Oh, it was too far to live. It was 120 miles away. Yeah. No, there was about 3 or 4 of us billeted at this one house.
No.
The lady, I just remember she cooked terrific meals. I had a basement, bedroom in the basement.
Peter, what are the scholarship options at your school?
Those are academic based. I don't know right now, honestly, what the levels are, but it's based upon your GPA. I think at like a 2.5, you get X amount, right? Then it goes up incrementally at a 3, 3.5, 4.0. There are a couple scholarships, which back in the day, my guys were able to get. And they don't call them scholarships, they call them grants. Um, there's scholarships so it's funny why. So the hockey, NCAA Division II hockey is the only NCAA sport where there's no national championship. And that's because there are not enough teams. Years ago, many of the teams, like you hear about Bentley over in Boston, right? Merrimack, I think maybe even some of the Minnesota teams were essentially Division II schools that elevated their hockey programs to Division One.
Yeah.
So what that did was it just left certain schools behind, so to speak. 1999 was the last year that they actually had a national championship for Division Two. So the league championship is what you play for. And the reason I mentioned that in terms of the scholarship is one of the agreements they made years ago in order to compete with Division III schools was they would not offer athletic scholarships because then the thought was, well, then you can just get whoever you want. It's not going to be fair competition. So the scholarships are all based on their academic levels that you have coming into the school.
I've got a question for both you and Tom. Over the years, I've had parents come up to me, their kids were entertaining going to this school or that school, and they ask me, where should they go? And will you, how would you answer a question like that? What are the things that you would reply to if one of your former players came up to you and or their parent seeking advice?
Tom, do you want to go first? You want me to go?
Uh, I, I, first of all, do they have any possibility of moving on in their hockey career? Like especially for, well, now girls too. So if they have a chance of being a professional after, you want to go to like Danny Heatley used to live 50 yards from where I am right now. So he went to Wisconsin. It wouldn't have been made any sense for him to go to Post, right? As far as that goes. Uh, Also the courses, what do they want to do? They're young, they a lot of times don't know what they want to do. But what are their aspirations? Like one of my girls told me her aspiration the other day at practice. She said she wants to play professional hockey and then be a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader. So I don't know what I'd tell her to do. So yeah, so it depends on the program and what their what their upside as a hockey player is, I think, are two of the things.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I mean, and I think, yeah, it's like you're saying, like, what's your goal? What's your dream, right? If your dream has always been, I want to play in the NCAA because it's hard with the amount of kids playing, to get there. It's difficult to get to that NCAA level. Um, so I think that's the first thing is if that's your dream and that's your goal, okay, how do we get there? The second thing is the school that you're interested in, and this is really important, are they interested in you? Hockey wise, that's really important. If the coach is not recruiting you, then and you say, well, I'm just going to go and I'm going to walk on. I'm not telling you don't do it. I would say just be ready to hear no. Not that you can't do it, but be ready to hear no, because a coach is going to always lean towards the players that they recruited first. So you're going to have to come in there and be better than guys that were recruited. And chances are, most coaches, if they're doing their due diligence, they've heard of you. And if they've never heard of you, that's not good either. So go somewhere where you're actually going to play because the coach is saying and reaching out and saying they want you. You can reach out to them. Hopefully they come watch you play and you go from there. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, do they have your major, if God forbid the old broken leg scenario, right? If for some reason you can't continue, can you see yourself at that school at least finishing out, right? Because the way it is now with the pro leagues now and that, like, I mean, certainly I don't. There's probably be very difficult. I would say I'll just use that word to get from like a Division 3 school to the NHL unless you're, you know, um, like a Larkin or somebody like that did it. I think out of UMass Boston. But with the Federal League, the Southern Pro League, if you played Division 3 hockey and you were pretty good, you can play. I mean, I've got guys that are playing Southern Pro League that played in Europe. Certainly not the NHL level, but you can still get there. So, but the biggest thing is for me, advice I give is make sure that it's a place where they are recruiting you. I think it's great that you think you can go and walk on, but what if you don't? Do you just waste a semester and then transfer out at Christmas? Like what's the plan? What's the plan?
Well, I got burnt uh, playing at Bemidji my second year there. We beat University of Calgary pretty badly. We beat them 4-1, 6-1. So their coach says to me after, he said, well, why are you playing here? Why don't you come play for me in Calgary? And that was in the back of my mind. Then I started going out with this girl in the summer. And I thought, oh, might not be a bad idea to go to University of Calgary. So I registered and all this kind of stuff. And there was a first course was at the end of the summer. It was in the mountains camping. It was an outdoor ed course. And then I looked and they weren't receiving it. They weren't taking any of the courses I had at Bemidji because we went quarters, which are 12 weeks instead of, I think semesters are 13. But the same book, same course, written by Americans, a lot of them. They wouldn't give me credit for the courses. So basically, I was starting all over again. So after a week of that, I said, I'm not doing that. So I just withdrew from the university and I played some senior in Moose Jaw. And then I went back to Bemidji. But of course, because I went to some classes at U of C, now I had to sit out 15 weeks. So that wasted that whole year was wiped out. So if you're going to transfer, you better make sure that, beforehand, not like me, that they're going to give you credit. Because
Yeah,
transfer, a lot of times, you'll lose a lot of the stuff you did there. I was going to lose everything I did.
yeah, no, 100%. And that's where, you hope like the college counseling piece comes in because that's important. Um, Again, if you're in high school and you're thinking about it, even if you're getting ready to go play juniors, because it's right, it's what you did in high school. You can still take some courses to keep your toe in the water academically when you're playing juniors. But as far as qualifying and getting into the university, those pretty much don't count. It's what did you do in those 4 years of high school? So it's important if you are thinking about playing that you understand that you need so many years of math, so many years of English, etc. And what the minimum grade is, right? Because you get kids saying, "Yeah, I got a 3.5." All right, well, that's great. Shop, basket weaving, and getting up in the morning, those courses don't count because they're not core courses. So all of a sudden, you got a 1.9 and you need a 2.0. So I can't get you in, or you have to sit a semester. And I don't know if that suits either one of us.
What I did is when I came back and I played junior when I left Pinocan, I went to Mount Royal College for the winter semester. They had this U.S. university transfer program. So I took that. I thought I was going to go to Middlebury, and I just heard about Bemidji. Some guy I played with was there. But anyways, so I got one semester at Mount Royal, and I transferred into Bemidji. So of course I just played JV the first half because I was transferred. The rule then was you had to sit 15 weeks. So I played, after Christmas I could play. So I played in the varsity. But yeah, there's all those rules that you should find out about for sure.
Yeah, and it's hard because you're not necessarily thinking about that. I mean, I did. I had a kid, great kid, really good player. Uh, Turns out he was one course short, so he had to sit a semester. Well, he's one course short because you're supposed to take 4 years of math. After his junior year, he was told, the counselor told him, you know what? You're good at math. You got enough credits to graduate. Just go take something fun that you like and don't worry about it. So he did that.
Yeah.
And now at the Division 3 level, he would have been fine, but at the Division 2 level, no go. So
Yeah. Well, when
it's
I was
hard.
when I was
No.
when I was coaching SAIT, and of course because a lot of guys will graduate 1, 2, or 3, not that many take all 4 years. I would, recruiting so important. So there's a guy that had led a junior league in scoring and is one of those low pro leagues like you're talking about.
Yep.
He led that league in scoring too. And anyways, he was interested in taking aircraft maintenance. It's a 2-year program, but there's a 2-year waiting list to get into it. So I really wanted to get this guy. So I pulled every string possible, talking to people, blah blah blah, and a great centerman. First day of class, I've never seen the guy in my life. And about 10 years ago, I got a letter from him, and I think he's in the 12-step program of the AA, apologizing for not showing up. So he never did show up. And then my other star centerman that year, he'd played for Wally, the Wranglers, I think. He played the first semester, and he had this agent. This Art Freeze Breeze was one of the first guys to do this agent stuff. And anyways, we got back from Christmas, and I said, and I was basically on the ice a lot by myself. I said, Teddy's line, you guys go work in your power play down there, and the other guys come with me. And the guy said, oh, Tom, Teddy went to England yesterday and signed a contract. So he was playing pro in England. So both of my big recruits on center were kapoots.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of thing that happens too.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to be ready for it.
Yeah. So surprises everywhere. And I told you about my goalie. Sure. My last year at SAIT, my really good goalie, who's my goalie coach right now, one of the players was playing in Sweden. And she said, well, why don't you come? We need a goalie. Why don't you come and play in Sweden? And she was supposed to be my goalie. And, but I'd recruited this girl, and that was during COVID. So you couldn't watch anybody play, but you could have those cohorts or whatever they are. You could play people you saw all the time. So the midget AAA girls were playing the Bantam AAA boys. And she was like 6 feet, 6'1" or something like that. And I watched the video, and she's just stoning these guys. They can't score on her. So I recruit her. And anyway, she comes, and now my number one, but I thought, I'll be okay. She'll be my goalie. And I didn't take the next girl in line because I didn't think she'd do well never playing. So I took this other goalie. So anyways, she comes and she starts playing. She's not playing that well. She's moving. I thought, geez, she moved a lot better when I saw that video. And then near the end of September, she texts me. She says, "Tom, I have to go to the hospital for a bladder infection." I got a wife and 3 daughters, and they never go to the hospital for a bladder infection. You get a pill, you know. So, anyways, that's the last time I ever saw her. I got a text a week later saying, "Tom, I have to go and fight for the custody of my child." I'm thinking, I had no idea. I'm
Right.
thinking, child, and she wasn't even 18 yet. Like she was turning 18 before January. And anyways, what had happened, another girl I played with her in BC, I said, what's with Tessa? What happened? She says, "Oh, she had a baby on September 29th. And her roommate didn't even know she was pregnant. Her mother
Wow.
drove her to Calgary, didn't know she was pregnant. And anyway, she was going and the father of the kid had come with his family and taken the baby as soon as she had it, eh? So she had to go. So I don't know how that all turned out, but that was one of the bigger surprises I ever had. And
Yeah.
now I'm with my fourth and fifth choice of goalies were my goalies that season. So that happens.
There's a lot that goes on that people don't know. A lot behind the scenes. It's way more than the X's and O's. That's one thing if you're going to get into coaching is if you just think it's all about X's and O's, it's barely sometimes about X's and O's.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of dynamics happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think our paths were pretty routine. Um, I don't know about you guys, but I only went to university for one reason, and that was to play hockey. Fortunately, I chose the right uh, areas of study, getting an education degree and a physical education degree. And so after I was done hockey, I jumped right into teaching. It worked out pretty good for me. Um, but I don't know what your journey was. I was thinking, Peter, uh, you played a high level of hockey. I'm assuming college. Is that correct?
No, I never. So I told you about my history and my past, and that my dad worked 2 jobs. My mom also worked once we got into school. Like hockey was never anything that we could afford as a family, but we did have a frozen reservoir across the street. So that's where we all learned. My brothers and I learned to skate in that, and I got into hockey, adult league stuff, men's league stuff. Played Hartford Whaler alumni games. That's about the level that I ever got to, but I wasn't able to play that. When I went to college, one of the reasons I did go, I went way up north, past Lake Placid for me is way up north, and was told that there would be a hockey program there that fall, which, like you, that was the reason I went there. And when I got there, all I heard was, "What are you talking about?" Okay. So so that was where that ended for me as far as playing any high level, but I still stayed involved with it and played when and where I could. And again, using the theory that why you have 2 ears and one mouth is you listen more than you talk. And I was able to surround myself with a lot of good people who were coaches, professional level, amateur, the whole bit, and Hobie Baker finalists that were friends and all sorts of things, and eventually worked my way to where I am today.
That's amazing, amazing story. Um, I One of the things I think that's happened, and myself, I always thought if you're going to go to college, you got to first thing is what do you want to do when you're done hockey? And that was the advice I gave parents. But that's the last thing they're thinking about.
Yeah, they in their minds, what do you mean when I'm done hockey?
Yeah.
Right? That's the first red flag too,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
But it's same with me. I chose a school I thought I might be interested in teaching. So the Faculty of Education, and it worked out. But when I suggested that, I thought, oh boy, they're looking at this school or that school because of this coach or that program. And I thought in the end, you're choosing schools. The first concern should be academics, but the reality is it isn't. It's sort of the best fit for hockey. And I don't know whether you have any stories where you've advised people, but I know that one of the girls, Tommo coached her. It was Courtney Coleman. She played with the AAA team as a 15-year-old. I think Tom, you had three of them on one line. They were pretty capable kids that all went on to universities with scholarships. But Courtney, she made the U18 national team, and I thought she's going to be a national player someday, a senior player. She was so skilled and talented. And when she finished her high school, she went to a school, and they were pretty excited about it. And it was a good academic school. But when she got there, she didn't get to play much. And that was, usually if you played on a national team at that age, you would be in a regular shift of things. And she was a power play player kind of thing. And I think she got a little bit disgruntled. And from listening to the feedback of what went on, is people that played power play was sort of based on seniority. So if you bring in a rookie that's uh, way better than a veteran, you have a dilemma. You got to try to keep them happy. And she changed schools. She came back to Calgary, went to Mount Royal, then went to university. When all was said and done, she went and played pro hockey in Davos, Switzerland.
I think I helped her get there.
What's that?
I think I did a recommendation for her or something.
Yeah, you found the team, and I don't know if you knew, but her uncle Barry lived in Davos, played in the professional league, the second division. He was a leading scorer at the University of Calgary when he played, and he married a Swiss girl and raised
I
his.
coached him at UFC.
Yeah, he just made a life there. Now Courtney went there, and she had a pretty good season, but it's a pretty serious program. Yeah, you have to go in August and train, and it's like a run like the Davos professional men's team. High expectations, training, and fitness testing, and everything like that. And uh, Lori played the 1 year and decided that she didn't want to go in August and train. So this year she took a scholarship in Spain. It's not a scholarship; it's just pro hockey in Spain, a place to live, a car, uh, enough money to buy groceries and live the life. And why not? So that to me, this story for girls, Tom, is every one of those girls that graduates from a college, if they want to travel and play and see the world, there's opportunities for them like never before.
Oh yeah, I helped two of my Mount Royal girls. They went and played in Vienna for a season,
Yeah,
which would have been a nice experience.
yeah. So I
Yeah, it's
Go
It's
ahead.
interesting, boy. Like, yeah, your story there about the coach and the way that operates. Like I understand, right? And this is the argument that a senior uses. I mean, the way and Tom, right? You being involved with the NCAA and Wally, your involvement in everything you do is the plan is to each year get better, right? When you have a university team or any team, the plan is to get better. You get better by bringing in stronger players, right? That's how you get better. So while that senior on that team that you're talking about has the opportunity and potentially a leg up because they've been there for 4 years, they know the systems,
Yeah.
they know how everything works. So that's the advantage that you have. However, if you're gonna grow, and this is something that you hope I think a lot of coaches do, but I hope more would do, is explain that it is a meritocracy, right? Fairness is earned. Yeah, like I'm gonna get the opportunity as a senior to be on the first power play because I'm a senior and I've been there and I've been on it before. However, Wally comes in as a freshman and Wally's really, really good. And so
And so,
I'm not able to continue to perform or get the job done, then Wally gets an opportunity. And that's a meritocracy, right? That's how you get better. Because if you're just worried about, well, they're a senior, they've been here for 4 years, I gotta let them play, even though that they're they're not they're not as good as maybe a freshman or a sophomore. It's not fair to anybody. It's not fair to that individual either, because in the real world, guess what? You're going to have to be better than somebody else if you want to get promoted or get a job or whatever it may be. So I've never been a fan of playing someone just because they've been there. I think you give them an advantage early on because they've been there because you respect that. But again, they got to hold on to that. That's
Yeah,
just
and
my
that's you're not going to have a great program because that a lot of players are going to leave because of that too.
right.
If you're going to not get opportunities, because I've heard about that in lots of different places, and I would get players that would come and play for me because they left somewhere in the States because of exactly that. They weren't getting to play and you know, so they just quit and come back home.
Yep. Yep.
the choices are infinite now, and I'm just not sure. Like to me, if you play a sport, and we can talk hockey, I don't care where you go, which college, if you go to college or trade school, it doesn't matter. The anybody who's ever played on a team growing up at any age, you're going to get a job before a person who hasn't. And
Well, there's a lot that sport teaches you, but it's pretty cruel too. I'll tell you a story that my youngest daughter, she rents a room to a guy that used to play for the Stampeders,
yeah,
and he's from Florida, and uh, and he played about 4 or 5 years in the CFL. And one day he came to practice. There's a note in his locker says you've been cut. Clear your gear out. No one talked to him. Nothing. That was it. So it's not always very really kind, even when you're elite.
No, I mean, and just think about our sport compared to other sports, right? You look, on Sunday, you look at football, right? And there's 70 players on the sidelines, right? And exponentially, there's a large amount of those players. They're not playing, they're not going to get in, but they're there, right? They're in uniform, they're there. Soccer, same thing. Basketball, same thing. Hockey, we make you put on a suit and you have to sit essentially outside the arena because you're on the other side of the glass in the stands with the fans when you're not in the lineup. So from that standpoint, it's probably one of the crueler uh, ways that it works. However, it's always been thought of as that's how I motivate you. Do you hate that enough to go find someone to be better than so you can play? right? I
Yeah,
mean,
that really happened to colleges during COVID. Because what they did here is they added a fifth year, but then they didn't count the COVID year. So there's guys around for 6 years, and there's no room for the new players coming in, and there are like 28, 30 players on a hockey roster.
yeah, that's the same thing happened here. Too, I was noticing like Tuesday, it was a Tuesday game. I don't know if you were on yet or not when we played, but we played a team and quite a few guys from Alberta on that team. Calgary, quite a few guys from Calgary that were on that team that we played.
What was the name of that team?
That was called Albertus Magnus University. It's in New Haven, Connecticut, Division three team. But they had a boy that was a transfer from Niagara, and then they had boy played for Calgary Canucks. Another kid was out in the Superior Junior with Battleford North Stars. Quite a few Calgary guys.
Yeah, my grandson, he just finished junior 2 years ago, and he got offered a lot of Division 3 schools, but
Yep.
he went to Vancouver Island University and played there 1 year, and then he came back. He's going to the University of Calgary now, not playing hockey, but he was he was considering. So he probably knows all those guys. He
Yeah,
played in
I'm,
Saskatchewan Junior.
yeah, I'm sure it is. And there's a boy here that actually played at Okotoks.
Yeah. See what they're that breakaway league. They broke away from the Canadian hockey,
The
and
AJHL did.
yeah, well, they broke away from the AJHL and joined the BC Junior League. And it was all about you could, have a lot of Europeans and all this kind of stuff. And then the whole premise of the league blew up with this new rule in NCAA
Right,
with
right.
being able to have Div 1 players. So it kind of makes a moot point to that whole league. It's still going, but a lot of teams want to get back to, you know, Okotoks in the AJHL, or yeah, them and Brooks both left, and I think about 3 or 4 teams went to that BC league. Hal recruits for that league for trail.
Okay.
Yeah,
Tom,
that's
you coached AAA midget. I don't know whether you uh, face this challenge or not, but today one of the biggest jobs is to get them a scholarship. So I know Jordan and Kyle of the AAA hitting, coaching the AAA teams, U18. They are trying to connect players with coaches to get them a scholarship. And I know a week ago, 3 of Jordan's players went up and practiced at Grant McEwen as part of the evaluation process. And Jordan was concerned because one of his defensemen, who he's been advocating for, uh, thought she would be invited, but she didn't. But the job of U18 AAA coaches now is helping them get a scholarship, and they do have to earn it, but it really is difficult to navigate for your players and connect the dots of a good matchup. And there's an example on Jordan's team, a girl that Josh Gosling for 2 years loved her, and he offered her a scholarship. And this coach, like you said, Peter, he wanted her, and she's one of those players that you want on your team, but she's not going to be a top six kind of thing. But she might be a bottom six and be a very influential part of your team. And I thought it was a great fit. Well, lo and behold, she turned down the scholarship, hoping for a Div 1 scholarship. And that's the dilemma. The coach, I don't know, do you tell them that this is the best fit you're going to find? The coach,
Well,
wants you?
Well, so that was, yes, that was somewhat. I mean, it's like anything else you do in your life, right? You're gonna get a job someday because the company wants you, right? That's why you're going to get the job,
Yeah.
right? At some time, if you decide to get married, your significant other, it's going to be because you want each other. It's going to be mutual. If it's not mutual, you can't. That's one thing that players like they struggle with. Again, there's confidence in yourself, and then there's also the ego. At some point, and again, I think this is a big thing with coaches as well. At some point, you have to let go of your ego and understand that here's a disconnected person. It's not your mom, it's not your dad, it's not your uncle, your grandpa, anybody else. It's some completely disconnected individual from you, family wise, emotionally, saying, I want you to come play for me. I think it's going to work. Here's where I see you on my team. I want you here. No, I want to go play for him or her, the coach that's never talked to me because I think I can do it. When you verbalize it like that, does it make any sense
Yeah.
that that's what you're going to go do?
Yep, you're absolutely right.
And if you've got two solid offers, that then it's a choice. But if
Yeah.
you don't have another offer, pretty hard to turn down one you actually have.
Yeah, we had a heck of a time one year. I remember. It ended up working out for the kid, but we had a kid who we thought was really good. Would probably be like maybe a number two or number three goaltender at the Division 1 level. Probably where I think where he potentially would have fit. And he's all set. We're all set. We've got him lined up with a NESCAC school, right? Division 3, super high end academics because he was a really bright kid. Perfect, perfect for him. We go to a tournament. One division school talks to him, doesn't offer him, just has a conversation with him, and he blows off the NESCAC school. So now it's that NESCAC, so they filled it. No other Division 1 school ever came calling. That division school talked to him, but they weren't going to offer him anything. So we tried like heck to try to get him somewhere. We got him somewhere finally, and he played, and it was good, but he was probably a better academic student than that school was. And it turned out for him. He's fine, all that. But like that was a situation where go where you are wanted. Like he was going to be that other schools, like they saw him as their number 1 guy, but the Division 1 thing entered into the situation, and all of a sudden, I'm a Division 1 player.
Yeah,
Your story going to Bemidji, you weren't recruited, were you?
no. What happened is I took that U.S. university transfer course, and I'd never even heard of Bemidji. And a guy I'd played with came back at Christmas, and he was so much better than. I think he was just playing JV at Bemidji. He was so much better than last time. I said, "Where have you been?" And he told me Bemidji, and I said, "Where's that?" And he told me where, because I had been uh, writing letters to Middlebury, I think it was. And so, anyways, I kind of researched a bit, and I wrote the coach. I wrote Peters, and so where I was playing and my stats, couldn't lead in the league or anything, but I had pretty good stats. And he said, well, he wrote me back. He says, well, I've never seen you play, but it sounds like you'd have a chance to make the team. And if you come, I'll give you a fair tryout. So I went to Bemidji, and of course, because I'd gone to Mount Royal, I was eligible for in fall semester, but they had a JV team, and the group I was with was so strong, we beat the varsity team in the preseason. Like there was this guy that played for the U.S. national team, this defenseman, but anyways, so there were a lot of really good players there. and most of those guys ended up on the varsity team. And then after Christmas, I was eligible, and it was kind of bittersweet because I replaced one of my friends, a guy from Gimli, Manitoba, and I ended up getting his spot, and he ended up not being on the team anymore. But it was just, it was like the way I played, so I got to play. But you know, there wasn't the same amount of recruiting then either.
No.
Like a lot of guys from Calgary went out of the junior B league. There was junior B and juvenile A played together, like Murray Heatley and those guys.
Yeah.
A lot of guys, and Bob Toner had a scholarship for Colorado College that he didn't go to, and a lot of those guys went to U.S. College out of that league there and got recruited. Like Mike Christie at Denver, and he was an All-American. He played in the NHL a long time after. He Randy Ward saw him play in the juvenile provincials, and he told the coach at Denver, who was it, Murray somebody, he said, "You got to get this guy. He's really good." So anyway, he got a full ride playing juvenile hockey and ended up being All-American there. So yeah, so it wasn't quite as recruited as it is nowadays.
An interesting story with the national team. Uh, I graduated. I went and tried out, and I made the team for the year. And there was a young kid. He might have just turned 18, and he made the team too. And he was good, smart. Steve Carlisle, one of our
Yeah,
sharks. And I said, Stephen, the story behind him is the national team was running a hockey school in Red Deer, and he went, and the players were running the school, and they saw him, and they told Father Bauer, "You got to bring him." They brought him. So, it's who you know to a degree, but not as much now because they're doing a lot of groundwork. And I think one of the scary things is they're recruiting talent. They're not recruiting character with talent. And they got to really be careful. But your story ends up well, Tom. That might have been one of the best decisions you ever made in your life, but that's a tremendous story. I always tell parents and girls initiate the contact with the university very early. If you're making you're on a U15 team and want a scholarship, they should get letters out who they are, very polite, expressing an interest in the school to let them know that that's their goal. And over time, they may send video. And I always advise them to send video of some of the good and some of the bad. But just the idea that they've contacted you, they have a name, they're going to look, they're going to follow up, whether it's flow hockey or what. So the
The
idea
other
of taking the initiative is key. Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, no, the other part of that why that's important too is, and this might sound silly, but and maybe it's different up where you are, but keep your coaches informed of exactly what you're doing in terms of that so that they can be an advocate for you. I can't tell you the number of times in the prep school world when as advisors, I feel like maybe early, maybe 2005 and up, all of a sudden the whole advisor thing exploded as a profession. And we would have discussions with kids about school and what was coming up, and we would always take our would-be seniors and have them create a list to reach out to coaches and, 10 schools, 5 schools that are your dream schools, 5 schools that you could play at. You think in your mind, send the letters out. Well, the amount of kids that would come to us and say, "Oh yeah, my advisor said this," or "My advisor's got talking to so." We don't even know who that you. First of all, I don't know you had an advisor, and it'd be great if your advisor would call us as a coaching staff so we can help. We can be an advocate. But there was so much of that. You didn't even know some of these kids had advisors. Crazy.
And what's their advisor's background? Because I remember my grandson, my daughter had an advisor for him. I'm thinking, I'm the guy that's coached college for 22 years.
Yeah.
And some guy that used to play junior A or something, really with not much knowledge of much of anything, So make sure your advisor has a background for sure. But
Yeah,
like you say, they gotta talk to you.
and being around as long as you've been around as a coach, you can usually find some connectivity. Like I always look when I would recruit kids, and found out, they're them right then, but I would look them up like on elite prospects, and you could find some commonality. Maybe he played on some team 2 years before that or whatever that, hey, I know that coach, or I know the kid that he played with, or the dad maybe had some level of coaching or played pro. So you could find some commonality and work that. But I don't know how much of that goes on. It's just, okay, give me your list because I've seen this. Like how do you so how do they know who to talk to? Well, I gave them a list. So you gave them a list of schools and they reach out to those schools. And then that's it. Is there a
Yeah, it's a
discussion
lot better
about?
if the coach gets a hold of them and than some advisor, because the guy knows that the advisor's getting paid, so he's gonna say anything. It was like recruiting during COVID. That was my last year at college. I mean, 15 of my players were done, and basically I had to have a whole new team, but nobody was playing. So the only one I ever saw play was the video of the two that I talked to you about. Everybody else, I'm going blind, and I'm kind of calling coaches, but then every coach wants to have their kid playing college and all that. So they're inflating how good these kids are sometimes. So I basically got a whole new team, and about 1/3 of them weren't good enough to play that level because I'd
Well,
never
and
seen them play.
yeah, and the other part of that too is having that conversation with that coach. If you know them, it's one thing, but if you really don't know them, I'm going to be honest with you that I don't want to be a place where you're just sending a kid so you can say you got the kid into college. Because if that happens, I'll be honest with you, I'm never going to recruit a kid off your team again.
And they put
Because
it
I
on their
can't.
website. So and so got, they'll put a picture of them signing the letter of
Yeah,
intent, and
yeah,
that's to recruit more players for their team.
right. Because I
So they're
can't
kind of
trust.
using you, but they're not really helping you.
Yeah, and if I need to, I'll tell every other coach that I know, hey, watch out for this team because they sent me this kid and he was nothing like what they said. It was just
Yeah.
to fill a spot. And there's guys that'll do that too. So it's it's hard. It's like you said, it's just trying to get them, and that way you get more kids for your team next year.
Yeah.
Peter, I just took note of something you said earlier. I wanted to interrupt you at the time, but uh, you mentioned the advisor, and I forgot to mention that the girl that Jordan had and Josh wanted at the University of Calgary, it was the advice of an advisor to not take that scholarship. So can you imagine Jordan's frustration? So I think one of the things, the messages that we want to get out there is advisors work with coaches because you've got to be on the same page. But how do you separate their authentic purpose? Are they, doing it for their own interest, or are they really doing it for the best interest of their clients?
In that world, word of mouth, like in general, right? Word of again, who you're going to play for as a coach, word of mouth. I mean, before for me, before I would hire an advisor, I would ask who who have you placed, who have you worked with, and do you mind if I get a phone number because I'd like to talk to them? And if they balk at that at all, just get off the phone or get out of the office as quickly as you can. Because if you've got nothing to hide and you know you've done a good job and you do the due diligence, then you'd be more than happy for them to talk to those people that they've worked with. So I think that's important too, right? I mean, you reality too is while you go to buy a car, you go to unless you're really good friends with the dealer, you go to 3 or 4 dealerships to try to get the best deal and get a good feel that everything's going to be okay after the fact. Same thing. Like, are you going to just the other piece too is what happens after? What happens after you help me get my commitment? Do you disappear? Are you still part of the process? Because I want good relationships, but I also want to play afterwards. Like, where are we going with this? So there's a lot that goes into it, but it's very difficult. And I think probably in any sport, if you tell a parent sometimes what they need to hear or want to hear, then they just agree with you and you got them. And that's a huge responsibility for a coach and advisor. But you need to really be humble with that when you're in that kind of position to have that kind of an effect on a person's life.
It's not simple.
No.
It's more complex than ever. And
And the responsibility's on the player too, right? The player's got to do what they got to do. If you get me an opportunity to play for school X, and as a freshman, I put on the freshman 15, and I don't work out like I should. I'm out on Friday nights or Thursday nights. Then, then there's that piece of it too. Like there's responsibility on both sides, really.
yeah. Well, it's nice to coach a level where you don't recruit, Tom. But the double 18 level, U18, uh, they have policies where you can't talk to other players on the team within your organization. But I know during the year, uh, those coaches are scouting outlaw leagues and underage players that are going to be difference makers at the AAA level here. And it's a bit of a conflict because you work for an association that wants to build girls that are in the program and stay in the program. In other words, not outside of the program, in outlaw programs that aren't recognized by Hockey Canada or Hockey Alberta so that they can participate in provincial championships.
Well,
And
most of them did play in GHC, and then they got sold a bell.
yeah,
They got sold a story and left to these teams that aren't as good as our teams.
yeah, yeah, I watched. I think I mentioned to you, Tom, last weekend a game just happened into the arena before Jordan's game, and it's the U16 league, which I think is good because, like you said, it should be U14, U16, and U18, which definitely suits the matrix of growth and development uh, for female hockey players, at least. And I watched the hockey, many of the girls that were in GHC, and I think every one of our 3 teams would have beaten the team on the ice. And that's a tribute to the quality of that our U15 league and the coaching that's going on in it, you know.
Yeah, well, that particular league, like they can't play on any of the Alberta teams and all that. And I know that we lost one girl and her parents. She's bigger, and I think in U13 she dominated, but she wasn't that great for us. I had her when she was U13 too, before her first year U13, and she's playing for another team, and she's one of their best players. But she doesn't see the ice. She doesn't look around at all. She's got good skills, but it's 1-on-5 all the time.
Yeah.
And just there are these leagues, and that's like that BC Junior League, the same thing.
Yeah.
That's kind of they can't participate in any Hockey Canada stuff or anything.
Yeah.
So it kind of limits the kids or be on Team Alberta. And if you want to get a scholarship, especially in girls, because guys, they don't go till they're 20 mostly. But girls, if you don't play on Team Alberta, it's pretty tough to get a scholarship to a high level team or even in that Alberta Cup, whatever it is. So
Now I got a text from Dean. He's told me he would be joining us pretty soon. I just wanted to talk a little bit about Dean's background before he gets on. Um, Dean Holden he's doing a thesis, and he sent me a bunch of information yesterday about the thesis, Tom, and I couldn't find my dictionary to understand the title and the depth of his thesis.
well, anytime you're in a university, you got to make anything simple's got to sound very complicated.
Well, and I really think that's what happens when you study the game too much. When you get into the science of it, the science overtakes it and it overrides the intuition of coaching. But
Well,
nonetheless, the
I,
research.
I got to throw this at you quick because you just touched something in my head. So God rest his soul, my father-in-law, great man, did a lot for us as a family, no question. He was an engineer. He was an engineer. So I remember we were all sitting out in the back one day and we were helping him clear some land because he wanted to put in a pool. So my brother-in-law are digging around and we come to this large rock that's got to get moved. So he looks, I'm gonna go get, some 2x4s and a 2x6. We can create a lever and a fulcrum and we can lever this thing right out of there. So he's gone like a couple of minutes. I look at my brother-in-law and I say, do you want to roll the rock right out of the hole? And he goes, yeah, let's do that. So we grabbed it and rolled it out of the hole. So he comes back with all the 2x4s and everything. He goes, what'd you do? Well, we rolled it out of the hole. And he said, yeah, well, you could have gone that way too. So that kind of speaks to the over complication,
Yeah,
what you're talking about. I
that's
still, I still remember that. It was just so funny.
Sami Jo emailed you. Just, hi, Wally, is there a meeting today? I seem to have an old link. So maybe send Sammy the link for this.
okay. I'm going to go to my emails. I'll forward it to Sammy right now. Tom, Dean spent some time in Korea. Can you, while I'm emailing Sammy, share your experience? You working with the Koreans in Calgary, how it started and what it was like.
Oh, one day I was just going to play hockey at Father Bauer, and there's a double arena there, right? So at the smaller rink, there's all these guys skating around, and I wondered who they were, and they weren't doing anything. They're just mulling around, skating around, and there was a guy there, and we'd played the Japanese national team. I was helping at University of Calgary at that time, the year before, and I said to this guy, I said, "Is that a Japanese team?" And he says, "No, it's a Korean team." I said, "Well, why aren't they doing anything?" Because they were just skating around aimlessly. He said, "Well, the coach quit because nobody speaks English and he didn't know what to do." I said, "Well, who's that?" And he gave the guy's name, and I said, "Oh, I used to coach against him." He said, "You're a coach?" And I said, "Yeah." And they had a practice that afternoon because they were going two-hour practices a day, 6 days a week for 4 weeks. So 96 hours on the ice. And Monday, Wednesday, Friday, they did weights, and Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, they did plyos. And they got Sunday off. It was a university team. So anyway, the guy asked me if I'd run the afternoon practice, and they liked what I did. So the next 8 summers, I had uh, that team about 3 times on high school teams, and then the last time was a pro team. So they'd come and train in Calgary, and then they had a big economic downturn, I think, in the mid '90s or something. They didn't come for a few years. I think they're back now, but it's different people running it. But it was quite the experience of coaching people that nobody spoke English. Well, this team had one guy that spoke English, but he wasn't a hockey player. He was going at UCLA or something. And I asked him to explain this drill once, and he gets up there. Well, it's like ask my wife to explain a drill. He had no idea what he was talking about. I just said, "Go away," and I just used the international symbols. And so, anyways, I one year out of the 8, the last year, the pro team, there was a guy from Calgary, Billy Kim, was their fitness guy, and he was the only guy who could speak English. So it was quite the experience coaching these guys, and you know, they line up at the end of every practice and they bow. The captain would yell something, and they bow, and I bow back to them, and so a totally different culture. But they sure listen, because if they didn't, they got beat. If I had to learn to keep my voice down because I said, "Go hard, hard, hard," and the coach thought I was mad at them. He'd pick somebody out, and they'd have to lean against the boards with their hands up like this, and he'd just beat them with his stick. And if he was really mad, the last one, he'd whack in the back of their knees. So I kind of learned that, keep my voice down, because he didn't know what I was saying, so he was just trying to. But most of the time, the coaches went and golf, so they weren't there that often. So that's my.
Tom, how many years did you work with the Koreans?
Pardon?
How many years did you work
Oh,
with
8 summers.
the
8 summers. All. I think about 6 of them I was working with, assistant coach at University of Calgary.
Yeah.
But then the one I wasn't, the pro team, we played University of Calgary.
Yeah.
And in Calgary, Billy had done the fitness stuff with them, the testing night before, so they were all exhausted. And University beat us, and then they took 25 University of Calgary people to Korea for a tournament. And that team, Winnie Amando, I think it was called, they beat the Dinos twice in Korea. So
That's interesting, Tom, like what you're talking about culture, right? Like you're talking about
yeah,
how raising your voice like was taken differently. When I did a hockey school, I was in Norway for a week, and I get up to the board, and you draw up your symbols and you put the X's in the corner where all the players are.
yeah,
And they looked at it, and some of the kids spoke English, some kids didn't. And one of the kids that spoke English, he piped up, "How come you have all the cones piled up in the corner?" And I
yeah,
said, "Those aren't cones. Those are players." He goes, "No, X's are cones here." So it looked like
yeah,
I had
yeah.
a pile of cones in the corner instead of players.
Yeah, the international symbols. I just use them with the Koreans, and they learn one word, as a skate, shoot, pass, and of course they paid attention because of what I was just talking about, because they didn't want to be the one messing up the drill. But the
No.
cultural difference, maybe I've told you this story before, but the head coach of the university team, they took my son and I to Seoul. So one night there was a kid that had been in Edmonton, and he set my son, and we go to this fancy restaurant, and the coach, he's got his own table. They bring him his bottle of brandy, a gold chain with his name on it, and all this kind of stuff. And anyway, they poured me a beer, and it's one of those big, half 500 ml thing. So, anyways, about a third of it's left in the can. So I finished the beer. So I just reach over and I poured my own beer. Well, did I insult everybody? Because I poured my own, that means that I consider they weren't taking care of me.
Oh,
And oh man, it ruined the whole night. Yeah, so it's a
yeah,
good idea to kind of research how people are. It's like in Salzburg, when people toast, here everybody puts their glass and looks at the glass and touches the glass and say cheers or whatever. That
yeah.
insults people there. You have to look someone in the eye and take a drink after. They say it's like shaking somebody's hand and looking up in the space, to not look in the eye when you toast them. So it's a good idea when you travel to learn those little differences in culture.
Yeah, we had when I was back at prep school, they would send certain admissions people overseas in that, and there was one individual that went to China. So when you go, you give gifts. Like they have a gift for you, so you have a gift for them. So he had gotten them this nice little clock, this nice ornate clock, and he said to the interpreter, "Tell them I want to give them this clock." The interpreter looked at him and said, "You sure?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "Why?" Well, he said, "Because uh, the phrase for giving a clock sounds like you're attending a funeral or sending someone off to their end. It implies death and bad luck. We don't do that here." I said, "Oh,
Yeah.
it would have been good to know before I gave them a clock."
You know, I
Yeah.
wanna I wanna welcome Sami Jo and Dean. Dean, thanks for joining us. Sami Jo, I just discovered I got Peter Whitney's background as a broadcaster with his university hockey team and asking him stories about that. So when you're on again with him,
Amazing. I wanna know more about his background. I'll watch the video though. Good to
and
see you guys.
You
and and
too.
and he really hasn't got the extensive hockey background like most broadcasters, but he's got the knowledge to do the job, and he loves it, doing a great job. So welcome to the nomadic coach, Dean Holden. Now, Dean, before we get into this topic of your thesis and your journey, I want to ask Sami Jo and anybody else here. We've been sharing stories about all the different countries and the cultural things that you had to be careful for in your travels. Sami Jo, have you encountered any cultural situation that you learned from and you would understand better how to react or behave or respond?
I think that it's an interesting conversation, and I'll let Dean get to his thesis shortly. But I think every single trip that we took as a national team was something to learn. I tried to approach each situation with open mind, and I was always the one that was buying the translating dictionary so that I could have some conversational phrases so that I could thank people and make sure that I was doing the appropriate thing locally. But I certainly had some teammates that hated the food, hated traveling, hated um, the lack of sunshine in Finland, hated those kind of things. But I feel like that just goes to each person's characteristic as to how you can adapt. But it certainly teaches you to adapt in different places. And since my playing career, my husband and I have been able to travel with hockey to a lot more places. And it's amazing how hockey is um, can just be a common denominator, that you have the shared interest and the shared sense of play that allows people to open up. And yeah, I'm very grateful for the places that I've got to see. I often think like I kind of wish I was in a warm weather sport so I could have gone to Brazil and South America and all of that. But I certainly have seen pretty much every place that has snow. But pretty lucky and pretty fortunate for sure. So I'll leave it at that. And Wally, I can't stay for too long because we're preparing for the announcement tomorrow for Team Canada women's ice hockey as being, I say ice hockey as if I'm in the States, but we're announcing it on TSN tomorrow. So
No problem,
just
Sammy.
preparing for the show.
What you just said is a great segue to Dean. And
Perfect.
when we've been talking, when you were talking, and Dean was just, I could see he was smiling and nodding his head about culture. So, Dean, you're obviously one of those coaches who's got connected around the world with the game, and you've had to adapt. Can you talk a bit about some of those cultural things that you've experienced over the years that you've learned from that you might warn people of if they're going to visit a country?
Well, I was able to jump on. I just heard a little bit of Tom's story there, and I know he was in Salzburg with Red Bull, and it sounds like you guys had quite a good conversation about sharing some funny faux pas. Probably they weren't deliberate. They were just based on a lack of the cultural awareness. But yeah, no, I guess it's been quite an interesting journey, like, and picking up on what Sami Jo is saying, having that privilege of an opportunity of being able to travel and using sport as the vehicle, and seeing a lot of neat and different places, strange places. And the thesis that I'm working on is the aims and objectives, um, basically sharing my experiences as I travel through across new cultures. And I use for my data, my research data, it's just a writing form called autoethnography. So it's about me, about my lived experiences. And I'm using three short stories or vignettes that are creative nonfiction. And I anonymize everything so I don't, for ethical reasons, I don't give anything away. And I paint these stories, and they're designed to be standalone stories. So a typical coach can read them and understand them and get drawn into them. And um, hopefully they're evocative enough that, like I say, that coach will get drawn in and then actually start to experience and relate to the story, like, oh yeah, oh, what's going to happen next, and there's a plot, but these are based on real life events, but they stand alone, Wally, and hopefully anybody that would read them by themselves then would start to maybe see elements of themselves through my eyes and through my experience, and go, oh, I've been in a situation like that, or I've experienced this, and oh, but I didn't respond that way, or I think he should have responded that way. So it's almost like like I hope that they're going to be like tools so that other people can just read them without all the academic um, supportive structure around them, so that they would be useful and help people understand a lot of the common situations that appear when you travel and when you are in a new culture, a new climate. And then of course, because it's a PhD, then I have to add all the academic supportive structure to it, and that's probably not going to be as exciting, and it's not definitely going to be not as readable and welcoming and stuff that you want to read, when you're awake, maybe when you want to go to sleep. But yeah, so I mean, they're basically an amalgamation of, and these three were chosen deliberately because they don't happen on the ice. Because a lot of our, like when we go internationally as a coach or a coach developer, or a leader, like what I'm doing with the IIHF, when we do strategic leadership facilitation for the federations. Um, so much of our work, and I say our work, meaning coaches or coach developers, leaders, is done off the ice. It's not done during practices and games. There's a lot of that happens. But for me, the three vignettes, the first one is titled Passport Control. So that one speaks about negotiating your way across international boundaries and how you get sorted and how you make sense of the whole situation, because things can go sideways in a real hurry. Or you can just, press on and no problem. And hopefully 99.9% of the time it's the latter, where there are no issues, and you just, maybe smile for the biometric camera and stick your fingerprints on something and you get entered into a country. Um, get the stamp and away you go. And then the second vignette that I provided was entitled "The Giving of the Shit." And so this speaks a little bit more to, it's a bit of a play on language, and it's a little bit of a play on um, people whose native tongues are not English, but sometimes they're trying to communicate in English. So that's why it's the giving of the shit, because that's exactly verbatim the phrase that was used over and over. You need to come to this meeting. It's going to be the giving of the shit. So, like, I had to kind of stop myself from laughing because they kept saying this with an accent. And obviously, you don't want to come across as, making fun of somebody you just met because of how they talk. But I had to kind of chuckle to myself about the just how they phrased that and how they used it. But it turned out that meeting was very much about the giving of the shit, and how um, power and, humiliation and ridicule, you know, in this instance and in other instances, but in this one in particular, they're used as they're weaponized, and they're used as regular tools from a top-down leadership position when leadership is addressing some of their coaches and pointing out their flaws. And uh, and then how do I navigate that? Because now I'm in a position where I'm brought in as an expert outsider to work with these coaches and hopefully develop a trusting relationship, because I have to connect first with people to work. And I wanted to remain neutral and not be saddled with stuff that's happened in the past before I get a chance to work with them. And yet here I am, having to attend a meeting, which then, before I even meet the coaches, places me in a predicament, because obviously I'm working for this organization, and because I have to attend the meeting where there was quite the heated giving of the shit for about 3 hours in a small room, nowhere to hide, just my mere presence, and they introduced me, here's who's going to be working with you down the road. But I'm hired by the organization, therefore I'm a part of the organization. Therefore, just my mere presence being there, even though I had nothing to do with whatever happened in the past, situates me on the side of the organization and that power hierarchy that is delivering the shit. And yet I have to create a connection and a positive working relationship with a bunch of these individuals. So that was quite a conundrum. So it's, how do you manage these constraints that are outside of your control and potentially threatening the success or failure and influencing how well you're going to do. So that's the second one. And again, I think that it can be very much be translatable and transferable to other real life scenarios in work, leadership, business, sport that we can all relate to. And the third one is called Meeting Mr. and Mrs. Big. So again, it's not taking place at practice or a game, but I'm told that I'm going to meet the Mr. Big, and he's the big kahuna. And I'm at a hockey game, and I'm just dressed casually. I don't know that I'm going to meet Mr. Big. And all of a sudden, they say, end of the first period, you're going to meet Mr. Big, and we'll come and get you 5 minutes before, and you're going to meet him. I'm, oh, okay, good. Like, no problem, no pressure. As someone who's traveled internationally, I try to do my homework. I try to read about that nation's culture and history and, common faux pas. So, I don't sip from my drink because they will continue to fill it. And it's like drinking rubbing alcohol and it's horrible. So it's best just to leave it there, things like this. And anyway, so I think nothing of it. I get led into this room and then told to sit somewhere, and then I get left, and then this whole soprano like meeting unfolds, and I'm part of it, and I'm the only one in this room, and then all of a sudden men it's a combination of the Sopranos. All these men in black three-piece suits file in, and I'm sitting in a little chair by itself, looking over a table onto another chair that's raised, so it's higher than anything else in the room, which gives the impression of power. It's like a throne. And then there's a bunch of little wooden chairs off to my one side, 2 rows, and there's 1 row of chairs behind me. So I sit down, I'm told to sit there. It's dark. All of a sudden, the door opens, there's energy, there's activity. All these chairs get filled up by guys in suits. I call them the men in black. They're all dressed almost identical. And there's guys behind me, guys beside me, and nobody across. Then a door opens at the far end of the room, and there's a hush. You could you can just I have never experienced anything like this in my life, and I've met with a lot of high-end people, but there's a hush, and the door opens, and this man comes out, also in a three-piece suit. He floats across the floor, and he sits in the throne across from me. Behind him is a trophy case. There's no windows in this room, and it's dead silent. You can hear his shoes squeak as he walks. He sits, he glances at me, and then he glances over to most of the people that are sitting on that one side. And he holds court in a foreign language, and it's very pointed because I don't speak the language. When you don't speak the language, and Sami Jo, you mentioned this, you were trying to find translation dictionaries, and I mean nowadays it's on phones. You can have Google Translate, and there's programs, and there's even earbuds now that help translate stuff. Like, technology is crazy, but I didn't have any of that, and all I had was my past experience. And basically, shut up, Dean. You take your orders and your direction from body language cues, because when you don't have the ability to communicate through language, it's like a glass wall. You can see them, they can see you. You can kind of, play charades, but you're really trying to read body cues and body language. What do I do here? When do I do it? And like I say, as he came in, everybody rose up and stood very respectfully. And so, the glass wall, it wasn't even verbal. They just did it because they knew what the culture was and the expectation was. I didn't, but I figured maybe I should do the same as them. So I stood up and at attention, but I was a couple of seconds slower than them. And then when they sat down, There is a delay. I sat down. So this glass wall, even though it allows me to kind of fit in, I'm not really fitting in. I'm the only white guy who's not in a black suit, and I'm slow behind everybody. So anyway, this story talks about how you deal with very high level meetings when you don't really have a lot of forewarning. And like I say, I did do my homework. I did understand what culture I was going into. I did what I could. But again, I was not informed I was going into this high level meeting. So I was just in casual attire and I felt underdressed. And so these stories are supposed to, like I say, stand on their own, but as you read them and hopefully you get drawn into them, you feel, these senses of power and how you struggle to maintain a connection and to make decisions. How do you respond? Because how you respond in all three of these settings, whether it's passport control, whether it's meeting Mr. Big, or you're in an organizational meeting with the person who signs your paychecks and the people that you're supposed to work with. How do you make these decisions? How do you act? How do you carry yourself? And you've got to be culturally sensitive. You've got to be professionally grounded. You want to try to learn how to make the best decisions you can under pressure to protect your own identity, your authenticity, your reputation, and still allow you to perform your work with both whoever you're doing it with, your coaches, the players, and the people that are in charge. So that's what the thesis is about, Wally. It's almost, it's in the area of coaching, but I would situate it also more squarely in leadership and decision making.
So, Sami Jo, do you have any questions? I'm really, really intrigued. Sami,
I'm curious if you've read the book by Dave Bedini where he travels around the world
Yes,
playing hockey.
yes,
Yes.
yes, yes. You know what? I was never a big Rio Statics fan back in my university days, but I did see them play at McEwen Hall, I believe, back in my old undergrad days in the early 80s. And and I was there, well, 80s through 90s. And because I went back and I taught and worked at U of C, so I would go to some of the concerts. So I was aware of who Dave Bedini was and his music. And it's funny you said that because I read his book. I believe it came out in 2001, 2002. I think it's called The Tropic of Hockey.
That's right. Yeah.
And then I'd read that a long time ago. And you know, I- one reads so many bloody books. Like, I was just thinking today, as I came down to my basement, I call it the dungeon or the pit, to chain myself to the desk that I just left 4 hours ago at 6:30 in the morning because I was up all night again working on this. And I was going back down to the dungeon, the pit, and I'm going, oh, The Pit and the Pendulum, Edgar Allan Poe. That was a good book. Geez, I haven't read that forever. I can't even remember it. So I didn't recall Dave Bedini's book. But then once I started down this path and I started to clarify my research topic, and it's the short side version of this is I was doing action research. That was my initial dissertation topic. But because I kept getting moved around within countries and I wasn't able to work with one population for a long enough period of time, my data would have been useless. Like I needed to have at least 8 to 12 weeks in order to have an effective study. And I couldn't have all these variables mucking with it, and they always did. So we threw up our hands and gave up on the action research idea. And I was documenting everything wherever I was, regardless, because I got into the habit of journaling as a coach when I started. And my supervisor said, "Look, we'll figure it out. Just you roll with the punches, and at the end of this, we'll figure it out and we'll make it work." Well, then COVID hit, and I got stranded in Europe, and then finally I was able to make my way back to Calgary. And, you know, for that year and a half, there was no sport, there was nothing happening. So heads bigger than I started to think about, well, how can we do how can we create a PhD thesis topic for Dean, you know, and co-create it with me based on all the research that you were doing got, you know, was not, you can't do action research. So we came up with this idea about a retrospective look over the last 10 years of my coaching career, you know, through North America, Asia, Europe, the Middle East. And that's when I don't know how it happened, Sami Jo, but I think I was on YouTube or something, and Dave Bedini popped up, and I'm going, oh yeah, Dave Bedini. I go, geez, he had that great book. You know what? That book would probably be a good read again now, based on my experience. And I actually read it, and then I found on YouTube there's a few things, and it's he had a camera guy and a sound guy follow him around, and when he went over to Europe in 99 2000, he documented it, and it's on YouTube in sections. There's 3 sections to it, and he was actually in the town, one of the towns that I worked in, and so there's a lot of the same people, 20 years difference. And then he was in the Middle East and a few other places. So I watched that, I read that. I mean, I fell in love with his stuff all over again. I'm just, you know, and I go, I wonder what is Dave Bedini doing? So I looked him up, and he's a newspaper editor in Toronto somewhere, and he's like a small publication, I believe. I sent him an email. I found his email, and I go, what are the odds, right? Some dude, like, you know, he's kind of famous, like as a band guy. So I don't care about that. I just thought like it was very cool. He was such a passionate fan and traveled. I sent him an email. He got right back to me within 2 days, and you know what? Like next time I'm out there, I'm gonna look him up, and hopefully we're gonna go for lunch. Like very cool background that he has. So it was kind of in the background, and it became in the foreground, and I'm like, this is great. I love it. So yeah.
Serendipity, I guess, right?
Oh, isn't that
Um,
crazy? Yeah.
the reason I ask is David's actually become a great friend here in Toronto. We live in
Oh,
Mississauga, so not
oh
too
man.
far.
Nice.
And that was one of my favorite books.
Oh,
I didn't know him at all. I'm from Winnipeg, so I didn't know him at all. And I'm not even sure how our paths crossed. Might have been through, there's a lot of like music and hockey tournaments that go on.
yeah.
But I've read some of his other books as well. And then when I was president of the Toronto Furies in the CWHL, he reached out to me and he said, "It's been my dream my whole life to do play-by-play. Do you guys have anybody doing play-by-play?" I said, "No, we don't even have any TV for the games, but we'll figure it
Radio.
out. If you want to do play-by-play." My brother's a huge music fan, so like I knew the
Nice.
Rheostatics, I knew all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, anyways, he did play-by-play for the Toronto Furies. And
That's
so we set it
hilarious.
up with live streaming. He did solo play-by-play standing in the stands, basically.
With his hat.
Um,
I love that hat.
with
It's
his hat, yeah.
trademark.
And
Love it.
anyways, so then when I went to publish my book, I reached out to him to
Mm.
get some ideas. He hooked me up with my publisher, which was really great.
Nice.
And yeah, he runs the West End Phoenix, so it's one of
That's
the
right. Amazing.
last community-based newspapers
Yeah.
in Canada, really. And is just a prolific writer.
Yes.
Um, yeah, so just an amazing guy who has had these amazing experiences. You're gonna
Oh,
love him if you get a chance to, even if
oh,
you
I want
don't,
to
like
meet him.
just um maybe hook up over Zoom because I feel like you
Yeah.
guys would have stories like no other. And
Oh,
yeah, he just has this unique perspective, like yourself, for somebody that's traveled, but that also, like, we have a lot of teammates, I'm sure, within hockey that have traveled, but
yeah.
have they really traveled? You know, have they really appreciated
They're
the
in a
culture? Have
bubble.
they really, yeah. So,
They stay in that
um,
team bubble and they don't explore. And
totally.
I'm like one of the guys I read, one of the researchers. He's a British guy, McGuire. I came across one of his works that he put out in 96 or 98, and he was writing about British ice hockey and how the primarily the Canadians really supplanted British ice hockey. And my cousin went over and played after his university career for a few years. And I remember him telling me stories. Basingstoke, I think, was one of the
Oh,
places he was
Basingstoke, yeah.
in.
Hmm.
And it was, I mean, the league has gone through a couple of different iterations. Like they've called it different things, but he flew over and I believe he played there like 2 or 3 years. And in the off season of his first year, I think it was, instead of coming home, and he was dating a girl. He went to Acadia after U of C, and they ended up getting married, still married, living in Spokane. And anyways, she went over with him, and they said, "Look, we're building a new rink. We need people. We need help. Do you mind sticking around the off season and working on the rink?" So, instead of coming back, he came back for a little bit, but my cousin flew back and Kim and he worked as a laborer to help build the rink that he was hoping to play in, right? Like, and so this McGuire guy talked about he created um definitions of four definitions of terms of what he saw of international playing nomads coming in to help supplant British ice hockey. And he talked about mercenaries who just came for the money, like just give me as much money as I can, keep my career going. I don't care, right? And I'm using a sweeping generalization here and simplifying it, but to your comment, that would be like somebody who just, comes over, performs their role. They're not interested. That's good enough. I'm not going to get involved outside, and then I'm leaving. And then there was a term he used, which was pioneer, where the first people come and they get invested and they stay and they continue to build. So when their career is over, in this case, instead of flying back to Canada, perhaps they stay and they get a job because they've made connections now, and maybe they end up having kids there, right? But they're there for the building and they stay. And then how I characterize myself was more of a, oh, what's the word? It's like a more of a cosmopolitan approach where I come in and it's not saying I don't want to make money. It's not saying I'm not early or I don't want to build and be a pioneer, but I'm there and I'm appreciating the entire experience. It's not just about the hockey. It's about the community. It's about maybe learning some of the language and the customs. It's about integrating a little bit and assimilating a little bit, not fully, and appreciating the architecture, the cultural aspects, going to some of the music, the dance that are endemic to the country, and appreciating it and enjoying it. And so I love travel. I love architecture. I love the other cultural elements, the music, the customs, and probably in a bunch of my journeys, like I've been invited to a funeral early on in different contracts, let's say, and because I was able to connect, and somebody passed away of somebody who was working there, and I would really like it if you would attend, and this father's funeral, and then a marriage, and all kinds of like significant milestones in people's lives, and I get invited, and to me that's just like that's unbelievable. Like an outsider who is able to connect, and I get to see and feel and taste and smell the experience of what it's like to be a local. So for me, I really see myself as this cosmopolitan style of motivated person who comes in and tries to enjoy everything rather than stay in that bubble.
I love that because I feel like that those are the experiences you're going to remember and
Oh,
friendships you're going to make. Like Tom talks about going to the World Championships every year
yes.
and meeting up with friends from all around the world. Like he wouldn't have got that opportunity had he not done that, and been that person. So
Well, and I've got
Finland this
pictures
year.
of Tom sitting in Salzburg there. I don't know. I think. Well, I don't know if you're still here, Tom, but I've
Yeah, I
got
am.
I've got incriminating evidence, but don't worry, I'm not going to spill the beans about World Championships 2015 in Czech Republic. But I've got some appropriate pictures, and I'm huge on photography, Sami Jo. So I never was, but now that I've got a cell phone, I take bloody pictures everywhere. It ticks people off. I went to Wally's 80th. I must have taken a 50, 100 pictures. I'll sort through them and delete some. But to me, I find that pictures help situate me in my life. They help me remember what I'm doing, and it's like music and photography. It's not just the memory of an event, but when you see a picture, you read a book, um, you listen to music. I don't know if it works for you guys, but for me, I also remember what it was like to feel what I was feeling in that situation a lot of times. So it's that visceral emotive connection that I have, and I'm going, geez, I remember that picture. That was a great night, Tommy. Remember I took you to the Black Angel Lounge downstairs after
That's
that
the one in
late
the basement?
cafe in the basement. It was built 1,200 years ago. Remember I got you drinking absinthe? That was a great night, buddy. Little hallucinatory experience.
That
I
was
was
quite the
really
drink
proud of you
on
for
it.
doing that. Anyway, I won't go any further because I don't want to incriminate Tom. So, and I don't
Wally's
know how
gonna have
your
to cut it
insurance
out of the
policy is.
Wally's gonna have to cut it out of his what he puts online too if you go too much further.
No, I know. I'm just joking. But it was everything was legal and above board on the stuff I'm telling you. But yeah, I mean, and I maintain coaches community of practices now through What's Up, and I'm connected throughout the world throughout my travels, and continue to work and mentor and stay connected. So I love traveling because my friend network now has expanded so widely, and I think it's really awesome to be able to connect on a human level. And hockey is the vehicle, sport is the vehicle, but we're all human beings, and we all have similar, we all have feelings, we all have issues, and we can grow our perspective around different cultures just by opening up. So it's been an amazing ride, amazing.
Well, there's about five guys that want to go to the Worlds this year in Switzerland
I
because of
think
the
I'm going to
stories
go,
I tell
Tom. I
them. And
think this year I'm going because it's in Zurich, and my friend Simon there is with the national women's team, and he's got a flat, and I've been threatening to come visit him, and I've stayed with him a couple times before, but my plan is this year that I'm gonna go over. I'm gonna go longer. I've got to meet a bunch of people, but I'm hoping to go, so we'll have to connect on that later.
yeah, well, this year Canada plays in Fribourg.
Yeah, yeah,
They don't
yeah.
play in Zurich. It's about 90 minutes away, apparently.
Yeah, but I think the coaching seminar is going to be in Zurich, is what I was
Well, the
told
coaching seminars in
initially.
Zurich for sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, we'll see. But yeah, we'll talk about that later. It'd be good. I'd like to see you again because it's been 10 years since you and I had some hijinks there in the Czech Republic. So it's about time, every 10 years, I think.
Yeah. Well, I better not wait another 10. So
Well, but you're an Irishman, so I know like what you're capable of.
you betcha.
Well, Sammy, I'm sure glad you came on because
Yeah.
um, Dean was doing his work on his thesis, and Dean, I have to admit that uh, I had no idea where you were going with this thesis, and the length
Me
of time
neither,
you worked
Wally.
on it, I'm sure you've changed concepts, ideas, approaches. But what an amazing task that your supervisor would work with you to that degree, because what I've heard from you is just absolutely brilliant, real, authentic information. And
Where are you doing your PhD?
Cardiff Met University in Wales.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
cool.
I was
Did
over
you
there. I went over there. I was teaching at Mount Royal University, and then I ended up having a semester off. So I was going to do it all online, Sammy Joe, but um, it would have been a lot cheaper, and I wouldn't have had to leave my family. But it also, it just worked out that, actually I was going to go for the entire year, get the year off to go. And so I went thinking I was going to be gone for the year, and I ended up just staying the first semester, the fall semester. And I'm really glad that it turned out how it turned out. Like the ability to go there and to um, fully immerse myself in the culture and um, in the direction of just focusing on becoming a student again, because I hadn't been a student in bloody forever. And
I don't know if Wally told you I'm doing my MBA right now. So I turn 50 in a couple months. And so I just decided, why not?
yeah,
I
good,
think
good for
similar
you.
to you, kind of lifelong learner and just,
Yeah.
but going back and being a student, and I don't know if in a PhD you have to do exams, but like sitting down and doing an exam with a pencil again, like
Oh,
it's
jeez.
weird.
I haven't used a pencil for a coon's age, but the you know what, like I it was funny. I think one of my attributes is like I do my homework, like I say, when I'm going internationally. I try to learn stuff, but I don't. I think it's like a naivete almost, where I don't really worry about myself so much as I like, well, how do like what's going on over there? What do I need to know? And again, when I did my master's degree like so many years ago, like I think I graduated in like 2000 or something. And so I started this in 2018. And I they interviewed me online, and I kind of got to see meet the department head, and I saw the room they were in, and I didn't really know too much about it, to be honest. I was just looking for something online that I could, preferably to do it online, so I could continue, you know, living in Calgary, working, being a dad, and I was looking in sports psych or sports sociology. I didn't care. I applied, I ended up getting this thing, and then they said, well, actually, you're going to have to wait a year and defer because we don't have any space available for an online student. And I'm okay, well, maybe I'll have to wait. And then they emailed me a couple weeks later and said, well, we had somebody drop, so we could have you come in now as an online student. But I had already made the decision because I had the year off. You know what? I'm just going to go. And so when I got there, I honestly I thought I didn't really look into the specifics. I jumped through all the hoops, gave them all the stuff they need, got selected, ended up going. I flew over into the little airport into Cardiff. I had a hockey bag full of clothing and a backpack, and I had to figure out how to get from point A to point B with no cell phone because I didn't have a service provider, and I couldn't find a place to buy a card. And I didn't know about, oh, you buy an eSIM. I mean, these are, old dog learning new tricks, and struggled my way into Cardiff and found a place. But when I got there, the cohort was only 4 people, and I was older than my profs. And I'm going, holy Christ, like, like I didn't even, I never even thought about like the obvious. So that's why I say that sense of naivete. And then they're using words that I don't even know what they're saying. And it's not Welsh, it is English with an accent. But even their terminology in English can be different in the meanings. And I'm struggling to follow what they're saying because they're speaking quickly. And even though it's English, it's like it is and it isn't. And then I remember after that first day, um, I left and I took my bicycle. I've taken my bicycle all over the bloody world. Just that's how I get around in case I don't have access to a vehicle. And it's a more personal way to you ride, you experience the society. And I remember riding home going, what have I gotten myself into, man? Like and I didn't even know how to get to the bloody university. I walked it the first day, but it's so twisty and turny. And I rode a wrong turn. It took me like 3 hours instead of an hour to get there. I didn't have a phone. I didn't have a map. And I go home and I go, you know what? I haven't been a student for 18, 19, 20 years. I don't know what was said in this 3 hour seminar. I know I've got readings and homework. Like, and then I found out this is I'm in a sociology of sport program. I didn't even really know. I didn't pay attention. I'm going, okay, I got to bone up on my sociology. So every night, well, every day, I walked to this the other campus library that was closer to me, or rode my bike, and I would just immerse myself in that university library and just go, where's the undergrad textbooks? Because I'm not operating at PhD level here. My knuckles are bloody from dragging them on the way over as a former hockey player. Um, I need to, I need to get up to speed. And I was there that the 4 months, and I was in that library daily trying to raise my own level of knowledge to just so I wouldn't appear like the Canadian idiot in the classroom, right? And then they actually said, I went to them and I said, I'm struggling. Like I might have bitten off more than I can chew. And they said, you know what? Come and sit in on our master's seminars once a week. And one of the profs, he does that one as well. And we'll give you some of those readings, and he'll ask you questions, and you can contribute and like co-help co-lead the class, because you've taught university and junior senior high for years. Like you can do it, but come in and kind of help with our master's program. And so having that expectation and that extra responsibility was of benefit, because it helped me bridge that gap from undergrad to master's in a different subject than my old master's. And then I started to integrate better into the PhD courses. I could start to follow them and contribute, right? So an old dog can learn new tricks. Sometimes we've just got to do more of the background work, right? So it's possible. And hats off for you to do it, because like you, I love to learn. I'm curious, and my brain never switches off. I love it.
And when is your expected completion date?
Well, I'm hoping to be done here this year. Like I'm
Oh, so by the World
working.
Championships, Tom's gonna have to call you doctor.
Yeah, Dr. Feelgood. That's right. Yeah,
No
no,
mouth
like
to
I mean,
mouth.
I don't think my oral defense will be done by then. Like I'm gonna submit my stuff here soon. Like I'm writing like a madman, and then there's a few weeks, I guess, of paper shuffling on their end once it gets submitted, and then they tell you, yeah, we'll accept this, or well, you know what, you're going to have to make some changes. And then from a certain point, then they say a minimum of 3 months. Once they tell you you're good, this is acceptable material, and then you have at least 3 months to prepare for your viva, your oral defense. And so I'm going to do a mock oral defense, and then usually do that 2 weeks before whatever the scheduled real defense is. And then your supervisors grill you and run you through the process, and then give you feedback. And then you got another couple of weeks to try and figure out where your gaps are, and then boom, the real one. And so at the real one, it's a 2 or 3 hour process. I think they have a break in the middle. And there's a chairman who I like. These are all people that I won't know, and deliberately so. And there's a chairman who will run it. And then there's an external examiner from a different university, and an internal examiner. And I've heard of the internal, but I don't think I've met him. And again, they do that deliberately as much as they can. And you get grilled for 3 hours of the break, and then they take a half hour, an hour to decide your fate, and then bring you back in. And pass first class honors, pass pass with reservations. There's like 3 or 4 different categories, and if it's with reservations or whatever they call it, then they'll give you specific things that you have to add to your written dissertation, and then a time limit, and then get it done, and okay, now you're good. So it's not immediate. Usually it's a process. So, and I know they're pressure filled because I've been through 2 of them before, for master's level stuff. And I know they're not fun, but I figure those are, at least I've got that experience under my belt. And I've also sat through some arbitrations that have been pretty challenging. So they can't be any worse than that.
Dana, I want to thank you so much. I've known you a long time, and you've always been studying and working on something. And when you started this actual thesis, how long ago was that?
I went in, I think it was fall of 2018, Wally.
Yeah.
And most places will give you 10 years to complete a PhD, but most people either quit it or get it done, right? And so because of COVID, really it's like 2 years of that are a write-off. And then based on me coming back, and of course, I ended up getting divorced and going through all that stuff as well. So there was another year in there that was just, tumultuous to say the least. So really, if you look at the clock, from 2018 till now, you could say that, 3 of those years were kind of zero-sum years, right? So I'm you know what, I think I'm like, based on my cohort of 4, one of the guys who started with me, he finished this past year, and then the other 2 are still working on it. So, it's I was always kind of, how are my other colleagues doing? And one of my supervisors, who's just outstanding, started the year before me and was in some of my classes. He's been an amazing inspiration and help. And he graduated 2 years ago. And so it's a fairly new program, but you know, I think the beauty of things like this, when they are a small cohort, you do get to know other people, and just, maintaining those relationships and networks helps push, pull, whatever, to get you across the finish line. And Wally, speaking to what you said earlier, like, my topic was completely different, and it was about action research. And I did a bunch of it, presented a bunch of it before COVID, and then, like I say, COVID really threw the world for a loop. And so we had to improvise, and my supervisors, who were different ones at the time, really helped. And they work with the PhD students. They want you to succeed. Like, they want to get you through, right? They don't want to fail you. They have high standards, and you've got to do the work, but really they want to see you succeed. So, it did change and shift, and there was a period of time where we didn't know what we were going to come up with, if I was going to have to go back and dedicate another block of time just to do research, right? So, yeah, it's been a twisting, turning path, but it's definitely been, a lot of learning along the way that was unexpected. So it was a bonus. Maybe I'm getting 2 PhDs out of this.
Well, the No Dead Sharks title is very fitting because you're swimming, you're breathing, you're growing, and constantly. I'm very impressed. Sami Jo, do you have a master's degree?
Don't, no. I just have an engineering degree, but
Engineering.
undergrad.
And that's the thing about education is how many people get degrees or masters, but end up in their lives going a different direction. And Dean, you seem to have stayed the course, studying the game and serving the good of the game by researching it. And I'm so impressed with the three vignettes. And I look forward to a summary of some kind that us mere mortals can comprehend and appreciate. And if the books are designed for coaches, we should be able to understand them. Um, and talking to Tom before you came on, we talked about the complexity and the vocabulary and the words
Yeah.
which go into academic research, and wondered where you were going with this and whether we could comprehend. Well, I certainly understood what you did, and I want to thank you for coming on. And I really want to thank you, Dean, for coming to my birthday skate at Village Square and the tribute that all of you.
Really, can you tell me how it was? I'm really curious.
It was unbelievable, Sammy. It was a venture I really didn't want to have, but my youngest daughter, through her Irish boyfriend's push, said, "You have to celebrate your grandpa's 80th birthday,
Yeah.
your dad's 80th birthday."
Yeah.
And she came up with the idea of the skate
That
at
was
the arena
awesome.
named after me.
Yeah.
And it took on a life of its own, and the local association, all the teams got involved, and we sort of use it as a used equipment gathering for needy families. Those
Yeah.
would be the gifts that people would bring and have a free skate. And some families skated for the first time together
Hmm.
in 10 years. My my brother-in-law, he skated with his son. It's the first time they've skated together in 40 years.
Wonderful.
That's amazing.
And Dean, I remember this and I'll never forget it. Your wonderful kids coming over to wish me happy birthday. And like being coaches we are, I challenged them to the task of a race,
Yeah. Yeah.
handicapping your son,
Yeah.
flat foot skating only, from one
Yeah.
end to the other. And the daughter would skate full stride.
Yeah.
The son won, and then, oh, let's try backward striding only against a forward stride. And the son won again. So
Yeah.
uh, on your birthday, on my birthday, to be able to meet all the people that I know, love, and appreciate, and uh, jokingly, I told my friend sitting beside me, Jordan Fenton,
Yeah.
Jordan, this is a living funeral, and I celebrated.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So it was really wonderful, Sammy, and the tribute that I don't know who initiated it. I think Cassie may have been the driving force, but all of the interviews and all of the people and the players like yourself and former players and their comments were just breathtaking. So thank
And
you.
did you get to keep a copy of all of that?
Well, I'm still waiting for it. Apparently, there are copies on our local female hockey website, but
Okay, good.
I would like to have them so I can share them with my relatives because there's stories in there that I've forgotten about.
Well, I would like to see them. We would like to see them too because we haven't
Yeah.
seen each other's. But Cheryl Pounder, we were on air one day, and the videos were due that day. And I said to Cheryl, who hadn't done the video yet, I said, Cheryl, make sure you do Wally's wish him a happy birthday. And so she wished you a happy birthday on air when it wasn't your birthday yet. Um,
I know.
so you got double birthday. And she afterwards, I said, no, I didn't mean like on air right this second. I
Yeah.
meant in like do the video. Anyways, but then she submitted a video, and so you got double birthday, so that was good.
I was watching that interview live, and I texted her immediately. I said, "It's next week, Cheryl."
That's when she realized, and she went back and looked. And Cheryl's brain is all over the place, and she realized, oh, I have to do a video, not anyways. So we got it sorted.
Well, I
Well,
sent some pictures to your, I got an email through what your daughter set up for the invitations for the party. So I got a follow-up email if anybody had any photos to contribute. So I put, I think, 4 or 5 photos on there, and because they said they were gonna, I think it's gonna create some sort of an online photo book or something for it. So hopefully that shows up as well. So.
well, look, it was a real interesting morning. I actually wasn't going to do it because uh, at my age and my health, I'm taking a booster to my diuretic, which I postponed to right now. I'm going to take it, and after that, and I have to lay down for an hour and a half after that. So hopefully it works, and I can get the fluid out of my body and get my body weight down to 185 from the 197 that it is, because it's all fluid affecting my. I feel great, but
Yeah.
I'm going to feel much better. So
I'll send you some
I hope the
academic
rest of your
research
day
to
is good
read.
too, Wally. I'm glad you did this.
Yeah,
I'm really
very
glad
well.
we did. I think we've got to just keep it going and play it by ear. And Sami Jo, anytime you pop in, you're welcome, because having you on with Dean and the questions you led to, they just make this thing so much better. So
Well,
thank
thank
you.
you guys. And this week is U18 Women's Worlds, so
Yeah.
tune in. Megan Bozak is covering Team USA games, and I'm doing Canada games. But Megan is pregnant and is due in 4 days, so she's due to give birth right during the tournament. So I might be doing the Team USA games too. And then I get to go over to Milan also, which will be really exciting. So if you guys are watching any games at any point and you have any insight, text me, because you guys know way more about the game than I do and see it from such a different perspective. So let me
Well, you
know.
know what, Sammy? If you can, I don't know if you can connect through Wally or whatever, and I'll put you on WhatsApp, and then I'd like to connect with you, and then next time I'm out there, like I say, I was hoping to hook up with Dave, but
Yeah, and even
maybe I
you're
could
talking
do a
about your
Zoom
friend
call
Simon, like
before.
he'll be at the Olympics. I would love to,
Yeah,
like people
yeah,
like that I can ask questions
yeah,
about Team
yeah, yeah,
Switzerland, and
yeah,
that would be amazing.
yeah. No, well, so Wally, can you hook us up there? Or I guess
I
we've
sure
got
will.
emails, hey?
I'll forward you Sami's contact information.
Okay, okay, good. Thanks,
And
thanks.
Peter and Tom, so good to see you.
Great seeing you, Sam.
Thanks
I
very
sent
much,
you all the
everybody.
practice plan I had to get ready.
I saw that. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Tom.
All right.
Quite
Cheers.
a day,
Thanks,
everybody.
guys. See ya.
Okay, everybody, I've got to head out and take my diuretic and lay down for a while. So
All right. See you,
thanks
Wally.
very much for coming on. It was
Yeah,
wonderful.
you're welcome. It was great. See you later.
Hey, see you, Wally.
Bye
Take
bye.
care,
Yeah,
Wally.
and Kayla can play for Kyle now because he didn't realize we played at night. So she'll be back to Calgary by the time we play.
Hmm.
Okay.
All right. I'll talk to you guys later. Well, Tom will talk about Zurich later.
We
Oh.
practice at Crochow at 4:15 tonight if you're by.
Yeah, I'm chained to this desk. Trust me.
Yeah.
See you later.
Okay. Bye,
Okay.
guys.
See you, Dean. Yeah, well, Rich Preston's interested in going to Switzerland this time. And
Okay.
it's Mike Schumi that played in Switzerland.